Hello and welcome to the stream, or welcome back if you have watched my streams in the past. If you don't know who I am, I'm Ghost. You can find me at ArtGhosts online. That's ARTGH0STS. Excuse me. And today, Sunday, is my art stream. And during my art streams, I work on a variety of different things, but I've been really wanting to get back into animation and relearn how to do some things related to that. I picked it up a little bit in high school, did a few personal projects where I basically just made somebody blink or open their mouth, and then gave up. So we're going to do it again using Moho 12 Pro. So we've got an illustration that I drew of Lucas, as you can see here. And there are some multiple layers here. We've got, I'm kind of blocking it, but we've got the whole turnaround. We've got a front view. We have a 3/4 right view and left view. We've got the profile views, and we even have a back view. I don't think I'm going to do anything with the back view. Because I didn't draw the other profiles yet, so I'm gonna delete layer. Delete layer. Yeah. So, front view. I drew this as a vector. I probably shouldn't have, because it just got translated into a bitmap anyway, but let me see if I can actually import this as a vector file. Oh. Wait, what did I do? Import vector file, profile left. Yeah, see, I shouldn't have done this as a vector, because the way that I colored it in, all of my strokes got picked up. So we're learning things. Let's see. So I illustrated it, and I'm gonna go through some tutorials for rigging the bones. I remember how to do it a little bit, but I'm a little bit at a loss. So we're gonna have this background music just very low in the background, and let's see if I can pull this in as like a, let's see, insert media source. No. Window capture. So here's the little video that I'm watching. I'm gonna put this just up at the top here. Oops. Just, I don't want it that big. I want it nice and small. Theater view. Oops. Let's make this a little bigger, and then just reduce the size with Alt here. There we go. This is going to be my little tutorial up in the corner here. And let's watch it.
Everything, and then convert that group to a bone layer. You'll now notice that the tools panel has changed.
Oh yeah, so I got to convert. Do I just want the bust turnaround to have the bones layer? I do. So let's convert that to a bone layer. Now we have some bone tools.
And we have the add bone icon. Now make sure that you're on frame 0 for all of your rigging. This is where you build everything, and then the animation happens from frame 1 onwards. If certain tools disappear or things don't work, just make sure that you're on frame 0 before troubleshooting. We start with the root bone. This will be used to move all of the character except for his feet. I've got this facing down so that it's easy to grab in amongst his legs. Then I've gone ahead and made 2 bones for the body, and then 1 for the neck, and then 1 for the head. These bones are all connected, so make sure you don't click off, otherwise they won't be parented to one another. You can always check the parenting of your bones with the parent button and reassign things as needed. Then I've done the arms, the hands, and I've given the hands 2 dangly little bones at the end for those dangly things on the end of his hands. We'll quickly look at parenting. Just select this button and we can see how everything is parented together. So we can see that this bone goes to that, that parent is that one, that parent is that one, this parent is that one, and so on and so forth. So right now I'm actually noticing that this arm isn't parented to the torso. And what we want to do is fix that. So we'll select this arm, hit the parent icon, and then we'll select the torso bone. And now that just makes sure that when we move our torso bone, and this is going to look pretty rough at the moment, but yeah, our arm essentially follows it. I've given 3 bones to each antenna, 3 bones for the abdomen, and then I've gone ahead and drawn in the legs and feet. And sweet, the basis for our rig is pretty much done at this point. But if you start to move things around with the manipulate bones tool, which is this icon over here, see a bunch of blue stuff shows up and everything looks pretty weird. So we need to start working on all of this.
Reduce the bone strength.
First of all, what I like to do is press Control A to select all the bones. And what you're looking at with all of these red things right now is the bone strength, which we can access by pressing S on our keyboard or selecting this guy. I'm just going to pull them all way down. This doesn't matter too much for the way that we'll be rigging this today. It's more of like an influence control over how like a lot of your bones interact with other things around. One thing I'm noticing straight away too is that the torso isn't moving with the root bone. So we need to make sure that the root bone is selected. Click the parent button and yeah, it's not parented. So we'll just select the root bone now, go back and hey, the root bone is finally doing its job.
I did my root bone as a pin.
So for example, now we can see that like when I rotate the torso, because this arm has influence, it's moving his abdomen and whatnot. And that's kind of like what your bone strength is doing. So if I were to press S on my keyboard and increase the bone strength, you can kind of see how that's working. It's kind of just showing how much influence a bone has over a certain given region. To come down and just draw a new bone, pretty much just going straight out to the side here. But what we're going to do is reparent it and just click and drag off. So that bone shouldn't be parented to anything. Then what we'll do is select the leg bone again, go into parent and press Control on our keyboard. And while that's being held down, we'll click this other bone. Now if we select that and I'll just turn down the bone strength there, you'll see that we're able to move our leg solely with this point. And it's really useful too, because while we move root bone around, the leg will stay in the position. Now, if pressing Control while doing the whole parent thing is confusing to you, don't worry, there is another way to do it. You can just select the leg bone, which I haven't named, and you should name your bones, but we'll select the leg bone. We can see that this bone is B37, so with the leg bone selected, we'll go to bone constraints. We can see that the target in inverse kinematics is B37. So another way to do this would be to, select the leg bone down here, line it up for this other one, press P to parent, we'll unparent that, and then we can just see that bone is called B38. We'll come in here and select B38.
Ear left.
Same thing. Just turn down the bone strength on that.
Okay, all of them are named.
So I'm just going to quickly go ahead and do that to the other legs.
So he's doing foot targets.
And great. Now all the legs stay in place. You can see that things are getting a little bit janky and broken, but hey, we're pretty much on the money at this point.
Which I don't need to worry
about. If you move
about.
things right now, it's all going to move as one big mess. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. Select a layer and then select the bone we want with the bone selection tool.
Okay. So this is where I kind of got confused. So let's select off of a bone. He said select a layer. I'm going to do the back hair layer here. Select bone. And I'm going to bind the layer. Bind, whoops. Let's go back to the bone layer. Okay. Hair, back, and fill. Let's select off of this bone. Go back to the hair, the back of the hair. Select this bone. Bind layer to this bone.
Then up the top, you can click Link Bones. This will make sure that the bones are only influencing the layers we've linked them to. Once you've repeated this for all of the other layers, your rig should be moving quite nicely. You'll thank yourself for naming all of these bones later, especially when we get to the smart actions in the next section. You don't have to do this, but personally, I would do it now before moving forward, because if you change them after making smart actions, things will start to break. One final thing I like to do here is set angle constraints for a lot of these bones. I know I don't want this arm bending past a certain point, so using an angle constraint makes so that that can't happen. You don't have to do this now though, you can always set this up later if you like. Hey, so I hope that you're enjoying the video so far. If you are, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, I mentioned in my form when it's being animated. You don't need to do this for every part of your drawing, just where it's needed. First, open the Actions panel. You can use Ctrl-K to do this.
Okay. Let me get my layers set up and then we'll start doing actions. So we got the ears selected. Bind layer. Oh. I should have done each ear separate, huh? Okay. Ears and ears fill. Bone. Use selected bones for flexi binding. Let's select both of them. And attach to the head. Right? No. I shouldn't have made bones for the ears. Let's go back in here then. Let's delete that one and delete that one. We'll select the layers. Bind layer to the head bone. Head and head fill to the head bone. Select bones. Use selected bones. Create a smooth joint for bone pair. And let's add a bone constraint here. Negative Let's do 45 and 45.
Select a bone and make a smart action. This smart action has its own little timeline, independent of our main timeline. I like to go to frame 48, then use the rotate bone tool to rotate the bone in one direction. You can use the magnet tool to help fix up your drawing. Exit back to the main line, and now you can repeat this. Create a new action, rotate the bone in the opposite direction, fix up the drawing, and it's rinse and repeat for the rest of your rig. Again, you don't have to do this on every part of your drawing, just where you need things to deform a little bit differently. Now let's look at setting up smart bones to help give the character some more depth and control.
Bones. Here we are.
We're going to set up 2 bones to help rotate the body, one for his torso and one for his abdomen, and give it some angle constraints. You also want to make sure that this bone has no bone strength. Now create a smart action and rotate the bone to one side. Use the layer transform tool to move the arms, and use the magnet tool to help shift parts of the torso illustration. I know it looks like I'm doing a pretty rough job here, but I'm doing this only for the demonstration. Now you want to go back to your main line and create another new action and repeat this for the other side. Now before we go ahead and do the head and eye controls, I just want to show that I've made smart actions for the face as well. I've created a box just to help neaten things up, and it's linked to a shy control bone that's behaving just like the other one we just set up. I've got controls for each eye to make the top eyelid angry, neutral, or worried. I have 4 controls set up to open or shut the eyelids. The top 2 do the top lids, and the bottom 2 do the bottom lids. Then I've got a larger bone in the middle that controls all of these. This makes it easy to animate a blink, but we can also use the other lid controls if we don't want a blink to happen at the same time in each eye, or we want to push more expressions. You might find that these controls don't work properly on frame 0, but if you go to frame 1, you can get them all to work. The way I set up this blink control is by creating a smart action, and on frame 1, it's all the way to the left, and on frame 48, it's all the way to the right.
Okay. Well, let me finish adding my layers here. So we got head, back, ears, head fill, head. Shirt is bound to those 2 layers. Mouth should be selecting the head layer. Nose. Whites need to be bound to the head. Open needs to be bound to the head. Pupil left is bound to the pupil. Pupil right is bound to the pupil. Closed is bound to the head. This is switch layer. This is bound to the eyebrows layer, and so is, or the bone, and so is this one. Okay. And I want to set up an action.
Now before we go ahead and do the head and eye controls, I just want to show that I've made smart actions for the face as well. I've created the top 2 do the top lids, You might find, and on frame 1, it's all the way to the left. You can get them all to work. The way I set up this blink control is by creating a smart action, and on frame
I did switches though instead. Moho. Oh wait, no, I'm looking for this up on YouTube. What did this tutorial say?
Transform layer tool, and grabbing the edge of this red transform is tied to that bottom body bone, which then is tied to the pelvis. And that's how the hierarchy is going to work. Bone of the ear, S bone. We want to slip in here now. Alt click now on the pelvis. Come in here, and we're going to just add in 2 bones for each leg. We don't have feet layers. You have this part of the head being affected, and it just doesn't really work the way we want. The child layers will all if the head is moving along. However, let's say for whatever reason you want to go in and bind something else to, let's say, the pelvis bone inside the pelvis that you group already bound. Just click on of any one to. So with all that said, we're going to jump over here to the eyelids and start binding. So here we can bind the entire eyelid group. There's really no reason to do any individual binding. So we're just going to grab the bind layer tool and click once on the head to bind it. Now for the eyes, we could do something with the pupils to animate them even with another bone. So what I'll start doing here is go into the eyes group, and for blink up, we're just going to select the head. Blink down, also select the head. But for open, we're going to expand this and go into each eye group. So we can choose the right eye to be bound to the head, the left eye to be bound to the head. And how about we create a bone for the pupils so that way they can be controlled? And that will make pupil movement easier. So really quick, let's go back here and click on the copper bone layer, since we need to select the bone layer to add bones. And I'm going to click once on the head bone so that it's selected. Click on the add bone tool, and then click once to add a bone. And I can rename this then to pupils. If you move the head, it will then to be broken when you move the head, and it can just make pupil movement easier. So let's go back to frame 0 now and click on pupil right, and we're going to bind it to that bone, and then pupil left, bind it to the bone. And just to test this really quick, going to frame 6, we can go to the copper layer, and we're going to grab the transform bone tool, and we can click and drag, and you can see how this is going to look now. We can move the pupils around, and if we move the head, the pupils still go with the head because this bone is moving with that bone. But we can still...
Oh, did I parent that correctly? Let me go back. So, select bone, reparent. There we go. Reparent. There we go. Yeah, so those are connected to the head.
Individually change those directions as we see fit. Next, you have the nose. We're just going to bind that to the head bone. And then you have the mouths. This whole group can be bound to the head. And then you have the head itself, which can be bound to that bone. And now we're going to rig up the ears. And we're going to try the link bones method for this. So what we'll do here is come over here to ear 1, click on that.
I don't have ears to worry about.
Constraint for the arm. So with those two, and then for jacket, we can once again do the smooth joint. So we'll select both torso bones, go up to bone, and then choose to create the smooth joint for bone pair. For your legs, we're going to do the same thing.
I don't
And
have
then
legs.
let's move the arm. You can move your pupils around. So there you go.
So let's look at these.
And we're
switch
going to
layers.
take a look at switch layers. Switch layers do exactly what the name suggests. It allows you to switch to different layers during your animation. And a good example of this are the mouth poses. We had several mouth poses laid out in Photoshop, and the intention is to only show one at a time depending on the voice clip that you might be lip syncing to or the emotion that you want the character to emote. So here, you'll notice to the other groups. You'll also note that only one layer is being highlighted at a time and the others are grayed out. And that's to indicate that right now, the switch layer is on MBP. And just note I'm on TC, which is showing that I have a switch layer channel that's being created due to swapping. I have a switch layer channel that's being created due to swapping in these layers. And if we were to, let's say, advance to frame 12, right click and choose WQ, you can see that we created a keyframe. And even when we highlight over it, it tells us exactly which phoneme or which layer that it's referencing. And if we were to back up, you can see that this changes. So it's ETC until frame 12, and then it switches over to WQ. Now, like your bone layers in your groups, you can create a switch layer by going up to layers and then choosing switch from the list, which will create a blank switch, and then you can start dragging and dropping your files into that if you wish. You can also convert groups over to switches, just like you could when we converted the copper.psd group over to a bone. So one example outside of mouths where this can be useful is the eyelids, because you might not want the eyelids constantly on. Perhaps you only want to enable these at certain points when the character is trying to express a different emotion. So what we could do here is let's just re-enable the eyelids so that way we can see them. And I want to right click on eyelids and choose group with selection. Now this is going to put this group inside of another group. And I'm actually going to rename this new group to eyelids. The second group I'm going to rename to on. And I want to now make a new layer and choose vector from the list. I'm going to just click once and then again on this layer so that way I can easily rename it, and then choose to name it off and hit enter. Finally, I'm going to click on that new eyelids group, right click and choose convert to switch. So now we can choose to point it either to the eyelids group or to the blank vector. Of course, the blank vector will make it look like there's no eyelids currently on. But at any point, you could right click on eyelids and choose on or off, and perhaps he's being more sinister or he's talking about something here at this point, and you want those eyelids on. We could go in and let's say with on, if we were to expand that, you can see that we have the eyelids separated by left and right. Well, let's make sure we're on frame 0 for this, so that way we can do grouping and all that. We're going to select those first two eyelid layers, right click, and choose group with selection. We can name this one left. Then we're going to come down and group the other two into their own selection. We can come and convert to switch. So you can choose, in this case, to have the eyelids on or off. So we can be animating, let's say we go to frame 6, we decide we want them on. And then at this case, we're like, maybe we only want one on at a time. Well, you could then choose if you want to do left or right. Or you could build this even further and have it so that they can both be on at the same time as well. But the point here is I want to show you can actually embed switches within switches if you wish.
Oh,
For right now, though, I am going to come in here and just remove the switch functionality on, so that way we can just control both eyelids just like this. Your eyes could also be used as a switch. So we're just going to come in here, right click on eyes, and then choose convert to switch. So now we could have the eyelids off in this case. And then you have your eyes right here. We could right click and choose if we want to go in and choose blink down or open or whatever we want to do. And then once they're open, then maybe we might want to put on those eyelids as an example. So working with switches is pretty self-explanatory in that it just switches layers. But one more thing to note, it can be a little bit cumbersome to have to right click and choose what layer you want to swap to. So in this case, if we have, let's say, mouths selected, we could go up to Window and then choose Switch Selection. In here, we get a visual representation of each layer within this group. And it also labels it for us. So this can make, for instance, lip syncing a lot easier because you can use your arrow keys to page forward and back, listen to what the voice is saying, and then put in the phonemes as you see fit. And that is how you work with switches inside of Moho.
Basic dynamic?
Animation of him.
No.
Frame 1, it's all the way to the left, and on frame 48, it's all the way to the right. Then I've animated the lid bones that are either opening or closing. And when I go back to my smart action, that middle bone now controls all of the lid bones. Finally, I've got a control down here for opening and closing the mouth. All of these are parented to the shy bone above, and the box around it is also linked to that shy bone. Remember, we want to use the Bone Dynamics menu and connect this to the horizontal position of the root bone, just to make sure that it moves in line with our rig. Next, let's look at the head control. Create a single point bone.
Face controls, let's try that again.
Now, before we go ahead and do the head and eye controls, I just want to show that I've made smart actions for the face as well. I've created a box just to help neaten things up, and it's linked to a shy control bone.
So this is gonna, no, that's not what this does. What? Transform bones. Okay, so let's do 12. Actually, mainline. I think I'm just still confused. I don't know if I should start streaming this until I just sit down with this more. Okay.
That's behaving just like the other one we just set up. I've got controls for each eye to make the top eyelid angry, neutral, or worried. I have 4 controls set up to open or shut the eyelids. The top 2 do the top lids, and the bottom 2 do the bottom lids. Perform when it's being animated, which picks all of that up.
Let's go back to actions.
First, we need to group everything and then convert that group to a bone layer. You'll now notice that the tools panel has changed and we have the add bone icon. Now make sure that you're on frame 0 for all of your rigging. This is where you build everything and then the animation happens from frame 1 onwards. If certain tools disappear or things don't work, just make sure that you're on frame 0 before troubleshooting. We start with the root bone. This will be used to move all of the character except for his feet. I've got this facing down so that it's easy to grab in amongst his legs. Then I've gone ahead and made 2 bones for the body, and then 1 for the neck, and then 1 for the head. These bones are all connected, so make sure you don't click off. We'll quickly look at parenting. Just select this button, bone goes to that, and so forth. When we a 3 bone, move things, stuff shows up working. You're looking at Sonic. It's still influence One thing, so we need to make sure that the root bone is selected. Click the parent button, and yay, now we can whatnot, and that's going to certain ball out to the side. I'll just like
This is more of the target
bone.
bones.
Okay, move as bones. Did this for all of a name forward, because if you change them after making smart actions, things will start.
Why is this not working now? Because I'm on 0. Transform bones. I want to deselect that bone. Why is eyebrows selected? Oh, I'm not in the main line. Okay, now I'm in the main line. Still not doing anything. Oh, the neck doesn't turn like I would want it to. Let's get rid of all these bones. It's confusing me. Actually, let's not save it. New. Import. Okay, everything is imported. We resize it. Whoops. And then let's do 200 frames. And then do at 4 seconds. Because there was something.
A little character here. Let's select everything with Shift on the layer and right click and group with selection and call him alien dude, whatever. Now obviously a group layer doesn't help us very much because we want to add some bones finally. So where are all these bone tools? Now to get to those by the skeleton vert tools, click on and now we're here and you see back to the remember these red.
Maybe I should do the basic bones, right? On frame 1, add bone. There we go. We can rename these. Root bone. Chest. Neck. And head. Then we're going to go to bone strength, reduce, 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 and reduce.
Half transparent things that you see, that's basically our bone influence, right? If you come from, if you have a bit of experience with 3D rigging, that's basically when it can see this bone. If every children, you can only move. I think wanted it then way, then add another bone over here, and you can see at the moment this does nothing really. You can just move it around because it's not parented to anything. But we want this bone, which is the first bone in this hierarchy, to be parented to that one. So that is basically its parent. And by the way, turn down the bone strength because we don't really want it to influence anything. It's just here for positioning. See whole bone or click with this. Still the thing. Never tried rigging in Blender. They want, right? And that's basically what we want. So now when we move it around, it stays how it should be. Okay, good. That's the boring part. Now we actually want to see. Maybe we need a few more bones because I think it would be nice if these hairs had some as well. So let's select this one because to add this I would try which bind individual influence do this. But I can go to the body layer. I think it's even enough if it's just the group layer. I have still my select bone tool. I select these two bones and then I say bone. No, it doesn't work, sorry. It doesn't work on group layers, which makes sense. So let's take the spots, select these two bones, go to bone, use selected bones for flexi binding. And you see they get a little bit more, get a little bit more of a bold outline. So that now means these spots, they will be only influenced, or these flexi bound bones, they will only influence these two spots, in theory. But the problem is if I still move this thing around now, you will see nothing much has changed. And that is because the bones first have to be, basically every layer has to be assigned to a bone for it to really take effect.
Okay. I shouldn't have. I should redo that. Okay. I shouldn't have deleted that. Okay. It's fine. Eyebrows are both connected to the head. I'm on. Oh no, I wasn't on 0. Eyes closed are bound to the head. Open. Whites. We do want to create a new pupil bone though. Okay. We go to pupil right, pupil left. Open whites. All those are going to be bound to there. All those are bound to the head. Shirt's bound there. Head fill. Ears, ear fill. Back hair fill. I'll go to there. Okay.
Right? So that's what we're going to do now. We take the body, we select these two bones, and we say bone, use selected bones for flexi binding. Check. And these two bones are now also assigned to this layer. Now onto the mouth, and with the mouth, I think it's totally fine to just layer bind that. So we don't need any flexi binding because the mouth just has to follow this upper bone at all times. So I think I'll just say over here, I'll take the group layer here. It will work with the group layer. And I go over here and there's a little tool called bind layer. Click on that. And then it obviously wants to know which bone should be bound to that layer. So I select this one. And now it's already done. Can go back to the main layer. Doesn't the same one, but so hair obviously to attract around these bones. Easy to grab these hairs. That's head and over here just boing, and you see the hair moving by it. For do arc bones really are later, but I personally really like to have some freedom in my rigs and be able to move the eyes however I want. Some people, they like to just bind them to dials and have them go left, right, up, down. I find it a bit easier to have them just bound to their own little bone, and then I can move them around however I want. So let's select this head bone because that's where we want to parent it to, and go to add bone. But this time, instead of clicking and dragging, undo that, just click once. And you see, it made just this little dot. This is a bone nonetheless, it's just called a pin bone. So it doesn't have bone because it's basically click already because both can that itself bones. Bone is where we set it. That you see when I use transform bone and move it around. Be careful, because now it's basically moved it permanently. So this is basically your default with that manip. You just, anyways, pupil can't. I want to press Alt or main bone, so it will always go with it. Also move them. This are method now. Let's go into our eye layers. Let's select the pupils. Okay, yeah. The problem right now is, at the moment, this whole group layer is layer bound. Okay, next thing we will learn about smart bones, and smart bones have two functions. The one is to correct stuff, like for example, if I at the moment pull this guy over, you can see it gets really crazy, and we definitely don't want this to happen. And the other thing is, for example, I could go in and, you know, every time just, you know, animate these eyelids going down by hand and going up again, but that gets tedious with time, you know. So we can add a smart bone to just add a little bit of a blink, and we will also add a smart bone to open and close the mouth, and one to do a little bit of a head turn. So yeah, I think best we start with the correction bones, because those are easiest. If you don't have it open already, let's go to Window, Actions.
Maybe I should put a bone on the
It's
eyebrows.
docked with you over here. I like to undock it. If you forgot how to do that, that's docking, and then just remove the check mark with Actions. So I have them separately here. Now, Actions basically just basically they're like Photoshop actions. Like you record something that's happening, and you want something to happen during what's happening. That was the best explanation ever. Let me just show you what it does. Okay, make sure you are on your bone layer. That's important. Now we know we want this shape to be corrected whenever this bone here is moving, so it doesn't distort so weirdly. Okay, let's select this bone, and now go here and press on this new action name, and you can already tell
Save as. This.
Your name here should be the name of the bone. Every bone has a name. You can also change these names. I won't do it for this tutorial, but sometimes it definitely makes sense. Right now this is B2, so this is the action name. We click OK, and something has happened down here. Right now you are no longer on the mainline animation layer. You are basically inside the action of this bone layer, and this bone layer now can become its own animation that will always be added to the animation that you do outside of that. Let me show you. Take your playhead, go on frame 69, I usually go, which is 4 seconds, and now take your transform bone, press Alt, and oh dear, sorry, press oh no, it does that. Forget about Alt here, you don't need to press Alt, just rotate it over here. All right, so now we have already an animation of him rotating over here. Now, how do we want this guy to look at as soon as he's rotated over here? Remember, Alt right click lets you go directly to the vector layer that you want. Let's go to the body layer and start reshaping him, and you can do whatever you want here. You can, you know, move it, reshape it. The only thing I would suggest is don't move the layers. Don't use this layer move tool. Really move the points. Sometimes takes a bit more effort, but it just gives you less glitches later. Okay, and kind of see this one. It's a bit weird, and he obviously loses a lot of mass. That's again always important in animation, you know, make sure your masses are consistent more or less. This one is a bit weird. You can also, if something like this, for example, I want this to stop to deform so weirdly, you can also make a keyframe in the middle. Just make sure that the end position is really solid, but if you have during the transformation some weirdness, you can also really try to to correct it here. Doesn't, so I should probably zoom out a little bit so that I see what's actually going on. Okay. So what we now basically tell Moho is every time this guy bends down like this, add this animation that we're doing here to his bending. So meaning correct these shapes that they look like this. Okay, yeah, good enough. All right, here we go. That's one side, right? Now let's click on mainline again in the action windows. And now we're outside again in our main timeline. All right, so we have one side done. So what about the other side? Okay, super easy. Just one thing to remember. Again, don't be too hasty and click now new action, because you see when you see something like this action 2 or whatever, then you know it won't work, because it's important that you are on the bone layer. This correct bone is selected, and then you can press new. And now it should say something like B22. Okay, Tuck opens again. And this is, by the way, why it was important to have linear interpolation, because you have to imagine if you now go and animate your character and you have it on smooth interpolation, and it already has a smoothly interpolated correction thing here going, and it adds to that, then you basically get 2 times. Okay, but right now this something has in this place. Of him at as directly reshape.
Okay, so we are reshaping, or he's reshaping.
Deform so weird during
keyframes in the middle.
Okay. Is every time this guy bends down like this, add this animation that we're doing here
linear
to his bending. So meaning correct these shapes that they look like this. Okay, yeah, good enough. All right, here we go. That's one side, right? Now let's click on mainline again in the action windows. And now we're outside again in our main timeline. All right, so we have one side done. So what about the other side? Okay, super easy. Just one thing to remember. Again, don't be too hasty and click now new action, because you see when you see something like this action 2 or whatever, then you know it won't work, because it's important that you are on the bone layer. This correct bone is selected, and then you can press new. And now it should say something like B22. Okay, Tuck opens again. And this is, by the way, why it was important to have linear interpolation, because you have to imagine if you now go and animate your character and you have it on smooth interpolation, and it already has a smoothly interpolated correction thing here going, and it adds to that, then you basically get 2 times the easing, if that makes sense. Probably not, but just trust me on this. Okay, let's turn this guy on this side and do exactly the same thing. Alt click, Alt right click, and on frame 0, just, you know, it's less of a problem in this side, it seems. And you can always if you ever are accidentally on a wrong frame or something, like for example if I now did a correction that I actually wanted over here, no problem, just click and drag to select them and drag them over here.
Oh, let's make sure I'm back on the main line.
Okay. Yeah,
there's no bone strength.
Let's go out again, main line. You should be already on frame 0, so that's fine. So that is smart bones. Now the fun part starts, because now we will see what this is more like, you know, getting your shapes in order and and making sure your thing doesn't fall apart. Now we get to the creative part of it all. We want to now create our first smart bone that actually influences our performance, so to speak. And I think the easiest thing to start with is just an eye blink. So let's just click off so nothing is selected, and then add ourselves a new bone over here, maybe on the, you know, maybe on the height of the eye, so it makes sense.
Second, we'll do
First things first,
that.
always turn off the influence of them all the way to 0, because we definitely don't need any. And now let's see, we want to have this as a dial, and I want him to close the eyes. When I move it like that, I basically want him to close the eyes. So that means we need like, you know, what is this? Like, you know, 45 degrees? I don't know. We need some, I don't want it to be, the user to be able to turn too far. So we need some constraints. Select that bone, bone constraints, angle constraints. And now you see there's two of these little things have disappeared. All they do is they prevent that you can turn this thing further than where the line is. That's all basically. So let's do, let's go to select bone tool, angle constraints, and move this one all the way up to 0 and make this one 90 degrees. 90 it is, sorry.
What did that do to him?
And this time, that's important. This time we also have to give the bone a name. So I will call this up here with the select bone tool, blink.
What did that do?
And now it has that name. And that's it basically. The last thing you can do is show label. Click on this. So now we also always know what this bone is actually doing. Obviously it doesn't do much at the moment, so let's select it. Be sure you're on the bone layer. Click new and blink. And you know this spiel already. So we want to, when this bone is all the way down here.
Oh, it's because the eyebrows have strength to them.
All the way over here, something shall happen. What shall happen? We want these eyelids to come down. So take the eyelids, Control A.
You know, go back to 1, reduce the bone strength on those. Back to eyebrow.
That's it. Whoop, whoop. Now a nice little okay, you have during the transform
start to break. One final thing I like to do here is set angle constraints for a lot of these bones. I know I don't want this arm bending past a certain point, so using an angle can form when it's being animated. You don't need to do this for every part of your drawing, just where it's needed. First, open the actions panel. You can use Control K to do this.
I'm really struggling with this. I'll have to mess around with this more on my own time. It's fun to draw it, because I was able to draw all the stuff that I wanted to do, but in terms of like turning, I don't know what to do. You don't want, what's that, another bone? This will be the turn bone. We'll do 90 degrees. Show label. Close. Now, let's delete that action. Let's add turn action. Why is this like that? I don't know. Oh, and my captions haven't been working. Okay. Well, I've been going for about an hour now. I'm getting pretty frustrated. So I might take a break and come back and play a game, maybe. Or I might keep working at this. I don't know. I'll think about it. I feel like it's not super interesting just to watch me stare at a tutorial this whole time, so I gotta rethink how I want this animation practice to really be shown off, because like I feel like I'm starting to get it, but not enough that I am actually rigging anything. So I don't know. I'll come back. I might end early. Might record some videos instead, or stream a game instead. So I'll see. Thanks for hanging out with me or watching back on this VOD if you are. And I will be back in just a little bit. Hello. Sorry that break was a little bit longer than I expected. But I am gonna wrap it up here in terms of my art. I might come back on live in just a few more minutes playing a game. So if you want to check that out, I'll be live again in probably about 10 minutes or so. I don't know what I'm gonna play yet. Maybe just dive into Baldur's Gate. Or there's a demo of another D&D Baldur's Gate type game called Solasta 2. Yeah, there's a demo for that. So I might play some of that. But let me know what you think of the animation progress so far. I have not made much progress. But let me know what you would like to see, if you want to keep seeing me try to work at this, or if you want to wait until I'm a little bit further along and knowing what the hell I'm doing. As always, you can find me at ArtGhosts, ARTGH0STS. And I want to thank my Patreon members. If you become a member and help me on a monthly basis, or even just a one-time basis through coffee, you can help support me that way. Most of the money is going towards saving for my cat Nala's cardiology appointment, and any little bit is very, very appreciated. Have a wonderful Sunday, and I will be back on shortly.